Welcome everybody to the Black Sheep podcast. This is the second episode, and the theme of this is actually around the International Women's Day, which is on the 8th of March. I'm here with an amazing aunt, cousin, I don't really know, friend. Basically, yeah, you get the whole gist. And just want to introduce her briefly. So, Dilys-Ann Owen is an international human resources practitioner with over 17 years of experience spanning across Northwest Europe and Nigeria. With a first degree in banking and finance from the University of Nigeria and a master's degree in international human resources from Cranfield University in the United Kingdom. Her areas of expertise cover management, or change management, diversity and inclusion, systems thinking with elements of organizational development, facilitation and intervention, business partnering, resourcing, as well as employee-industrial relations. She's a leadership coach and currently works as a business transformation advisor with focus on behavior and change culture. She's married with 3 children, plays squash, and has been adventurous enough to attempt horse riding and go uphill to Obudu cattle ranch on foot. She likes fun in the workplace and is a strong advocate of inclusion and equal opportunity. As a mother of 2 special needs kids, a badge which she wears with pride and honor, she, together with her husband, has built a noteworthy repository of biomedical knowledge supported by their research and experience, as well as that of certified naturopaths. I think I got that right. Okay. Dilys says that with a sense of gratitude and humility, her mantra in life is to always leave a place better than she found it. I think that's a really nice way to start the conversation. Thank you, Dilys, for joining us today.
And thank you, Cody, for having me. My pleasure.
Really appreciate it. So, about a year ago, I recall, being at the house, and there's something I saw on the internet that kind of sprung up a thought that I had to share with you. And it was around inclusion of women in the workplace, especially because you're an HR expert. I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on that. So basically, it was a Farm Fresh post that I saw, and it had to do with, there were 2 glasses, and I think the men kind of weighed more in the boardroom representation, basically. And they're like, oh, we need to kind of, balance the skills. And in my mind, I was like, based on the people that I know and people that I have learned from on social media and the rest, I didn't really agree with the post because it felt like women, it feels like there's no need for a balance sometimes. I feel like sometimes everybody's focused so much on balancing as opposed to what kind of works in different situations. I feel like the overall outcome of the world currently is balanced, and that's why things seem the way they are, or at least that's what I felt at that time. And then the counter argument for that whole discussion was the Jordan Peterson post that I shared with you, which kind of was saying that the reason there's that imbalance in the workplace at the highest level is because at that point where people are trying to cross into that, the really executive roles and the boardroom seats, at that point is when most women are planning to settle down because it's in their 30s or late 20s, and they're like, I need to just have kids now and just, chill at home rather than fight and sleep and sleep for like 0 hours and literally kill yourself, So your reply to me that day was kind of something that sprung up a lot of thoughts in my mind, because I felt like for the first time, I kind of agreed with the fact that we need that balance. So what exactly, maybe you can shed some light on that and maybe even more than what we discussed.
Okay. So thanks. I recall that conversation, right? And it was really around, so why, it's almost like, why all the fuss? And I think it's driven by data. That's the way I see it. And I can talk about a practical example, right? Okay. On one hand, I watched that video. So he's got a lot of experience. There's elements of truth to what he's saying. Mm-hmm. But I think the debate is about, it's not one size that fits all. right? So there's always going to be people who choose a particular path different from the other. So in this case, we're talking about people choosing to settle. Women choosing to settle, perhaps have a family and all of that, and then not really keen to go, move on or higher in their careers. And therefore, you're seeing a very low percentage. In fact, I think there's data that I saw that indicates you have about 17% of women. So in all the boards you have, only 17% of women represented. Now, if you compare that to the number of women we have today in the workforce, by the way, or globally, I was sharing with you earlier that there's data that actually shows that 60% of global graduates are female. So when you think about
really
where
balance.
is your workforce coming from, where's that talent you're tapping into, you really have to think broader. But let me come back to the specifics of that conversation, right? Around why do we have this imbalance, and why is the conversation around trying to, create, the balance? One is, so I look at it as inclusion, right? In its totality. Yeah, you could argue there's different ways of, advocating inclusion. But since we're talking gender on this one, right? Why do you even need it in the first place? Let me start from there. That's my own background, right? Yeah. It's because we have what we call diversity, right? And what is diversity? In the ways in which we differ, right? And it could be the very visible ones, like the gender difference, male, female in this context, right? It could be the school you went to, the ones that are not so visible, right? Your ethnicity, the race is visible. There's a range of things that make us different. But different can also mean unique. So if you have a diverse, people, if you don't practice inclusion, then you're actually missing out on the opportunity to tap into that unique thing that everybody brings to the workplace. That's really the reason we go into these conversations, right? Yeah. Now, if you go a step further, if you're looking at gender differences, and this is not me, is actually research that is supporting some of the things that we're talking about or advocating, today. And, they'll tell you why men and women are different. In fact, from when you're young, that difference is actually made very glaring. So that saying around men don't cry, women, it's okay with girls. So you're a man, you can't show emotion. Yeah? By the way, you can't wear, how many times you see them putting on pink on a baby boy? So that demarcation already starts from when you're young, and as you grow. The reality is we're different, not right or wrong, just different, right? And research has shown that there's a range of things where we would act differently. So typically, when it comes to team playing and things like our teamwork, men tend to be macho. Men tend to show aggression. The thing around the meeting taking place outside of the workplace because they hang out, in the clubs and things like that. Whereas women tend to be, and I say this, and I want people to think about what we call the bell curve, right? Because I'm talking about the generality of people. There's always going to be differences to what I'm saying here. Like they call them the atypical people, right? On extremes, on the other, but the middle, most in general, that's what research does. It tells you what the majority tends to do. So, the thing is like, teamwork, we're taught to, or we've grown like that. When we play fair. See girls fighting? We play fair. It's about, so there's this thing around the empathy, the nurturing. It's okay for us to show emotions and all of that, so not going into plenty of detail, but the differences are there. And therefore, the way we approach things will be different from the way the men approach things. But let me even make it a much macro conversation. Why is this important, right, in the workplace and in the world we live in today? Like I said, the first part of all is that you're actually missing out on talent. That's the truth, right? Depending on work, that's one. Secondly is, if you see how global the world is today, right, there's representation, right? And in your company, I'm more likely to be interested in a place where I see people like me. There's research that actually shows that, I don't know if it's 80% of people who do consumer goods are women.
Wow.
Yeah. So who are you serving? Who is making decisions for household and things like that? There's so many reasons why you need to look at inclusion in the workplace. Yeah. Now, to that particular story, the conversation we had that day, and I'll use a personal experience to kind of try to buttress the point as to why this is important and why it is not enough to you just decide that women just want to settle, or some of them want to settle, and that's why they don't want to,
or at least don't give them the opportunity to still have careers while raising children.
Indeed. And that's the point I was going to make. So I'll use a personal example. I had to go offshore And going offshore meant you had to do a particular training, the underwater training for survival. Obviously you're going to go in a helicopter and all of those things,
cool.
right? They call it bullshit or something like that. But the training was 3 days and it was full board. So you had to travel out. It was actually in Lagos, but you had to travel out of Lagos, then live in the place for 3 days to do your training. And I just had a baby. Right? I'd just come back from maternity leave. Baby was 3 months, maybe 4 months thereabout. And I was still nursing. So the implication for me was I'd had to go away for 3 days. What was going to happen to my baby? I was still nursing. And I had no intention of stopping, nursing at that time.
Yeah.
So I made a request to the person who was in charge of the program. And I said, well, now, could you tell me what the facility is like? And then explain where you have, obviously we have boarding, right? So when you go for the training, you go to the industrial area. And then when you come back home, you go, so fantastic. So I'd like to please request to bring my baby along, and I'll bring my nanny along at my expense. That's what I said. I wasn't going to ask anybody to, do anything extra for me. Just so that I had someone to keep an eye on my baby. I'll go to my training, come back, feed him and all of that, And the answer I got was, oh, no, that's not allowed, So and I reflected and I thought, well, by saying that to me, saying I can't do the training unless I leave my baby at home, you're forcing me to make a choice about that. The second thing is, you're also telling me that I cannot do my job because I have a baby. Now, so imagine a workplace where that is the kind of culture. What happens is like, okay, fine. I said, back off. I wasn't going to leave my baby. Exactly. And I kind of said, okay, I'm not going to do it. I don't do it means I don't do my job. I don't do my job means I'm not getting the right experience. So what did I do? I escalated the conversation. And it turned out that there was something they could do. But let me just put a bit of a lens into this conversation, right? Because there was something, what's his name again? Peterson?
Jordan Peterson.
Had said that caught my attention. And I have to make this point. Sometimes it's not because people deliberately seek to make life difficult. Sometimes it's because they haven't encountered certain situations, right? But that's why we're forcing or advocating for a much broader conversation so that you see that these things happen in the workplace that actually can be career limiting for women. I escalated the situation and it turned out that I was allowed to do it.
Wow.
Right? I could do it. So they actually had to sign up. Okay, you know what? So now we have women offshore. In the past, you didn't have that.
Wow. We
have women going into space. In the past, you didn't have that. Something changed. Something is evolving and we need to keep at it. So my advocacy, in whilst I agree with some of the things he said, there's other elements around structure, institutional structure, policies that change and enable women in the workplace. So I'll give you another example around flexible working, right? And I used to date the day when COVID, oh my God, nobody knew that working from home was going to be a norm. There were a few companies that had started practicing this before now, but now it's almost like it's the default. And the debate or the question is about, okay, do you need to be physically in the office to do work? Yesterday, my sister, Uche, had to dash into the market for something, right? And she had a meeting at 12. It was a Saturday, but they had, they made that exception to have a meeting on Saturday. She was in the middle of the market and she got stuck. And 12 o'clock. So what did she do? She ran into a secluded area, asked permission, and there on her phone, she joined the meeting.
Wow.
That is the future of work today. It's not where you are. It's not about where you go. It's what you do. And that leads me to a key point around people have to start focusing on outcomes. There's a real orientation, change of mindset that has to happen here. It is not the effort you put into the work. It's the outcome of what you've done. So the education is not about teaching people about why diversity and inclusion is important, because it actually benefits you as a business in the long term, and therefore you really have to do something that is, tangible, that is helpful, that is supportive. And then you also have to listen to your workforce. I could go on and on and on and on. So, but that was really the crux of the conversation we had around, oh Lord, there's so much more that could be done and you will see people blossom. That's the truth, right? If I give another example, maybe we'll come to that later, but, it's just a case of, flexibility. I enjoy what I do today. I mean, in my, I'm doing what I love to do, but I have a family, right, of 3 young children. And I can tell you, if it wasn't because of the support structures that I had, it'll be almost impossible to do.
To manage.
Right? Yes, I'll just stop there. So.
Well, thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, but another thing I remember you mentioning that day was actually there's a lot more value in having women, because you said men are more aggressive, that's obviously like a fact. But the opposite side is like women actually put in more emotion, and I guess that balance of the soft skills women possess in that particular sense kind of helps the top level jobs and helps decision making. Because if everything is just focused on bottom line and solving, in the long term, I don't think that it's going to be that sustainable. Yeah. So I feel like that is one thing.
I would use the word empathy over emotion.
Empathy,
right?
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily a female thing, but yes, you tend to find that a lot. And like I say, it's about the nurture. It's about how we grew.
Yes.
And that's what perhaps makes us unique. That'd be 1,000,001 skills that we have. Again, I'm looking at trying to move people away from looking at style versus outcome, because is that same thing that you think is a strength is actually what other people would think is a weakness, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
So we're saying to people, the message is that there's different ways, so many ways of skinning a cat, right? That's the saying. Is it skinning a cat? Dear Lord, I think it's skinning a cat, but okay.
I think so.
Okay, but so many ways of doing it.
Yeah.
And people have to be open-minded enough to appreciate those differences, because it can work for them. And then focus on how do those, so ignore the style, but focus on the outcome. But ignoring the style doesn't then means that you have to understand, you know what I mean?
Yes.
That there's different ways of, getting to the same destination.
Yes.
And the more we advocate for awareness of these differences and how, can actually harness them towards a common objective, the more people then are able to collaborate further, the more they're able to understand why things happen the way they do. So I'll give you an example. In one of the research papers that I came across, I think her name is Pat Hines. She's an American. I've done a bit of research in this, right? We're talking about that when it comes to job applications, I found this very intriguing. Men are more likely to indicate what they can do or have done, or rather what they have done, even if they haven't.
Of course.
Right? And I'm not saying that men are dishonest. I'm just saying it's a way they would portray themselves. Whereas, and this is research speaking, not Dilys, right? And women are more likely to, you like to see like 80% of that capability. They may have done it, but they're not quite sure. Yeah. So if there was a time I realized that I was beginning to, women tend to apologize before they start talking. Sorry, as if you're seeking permission. Some of those things can actually be misconstrued as you not being confident.
Yes.
Or you not knowing what you're talking about. Meanwhile, you're probably an expert compared to the man, just as an example.
And then the man just comes and says what he wants to say. I want this.
The rabble rouses his way through and he's, that sort of thing. So those differences do exist. So our job, in being in human resources and, being advocates of D&I is actually to teach people, or rather to create the awareness. I wouldn't call it teaching. It's about creating awareness. There's things like unconscious biases that happen in the workplace on a regular basis. And it can be from the micro things, like I call it microaggressions. So I'll give you an example. 3 days ago, I have so many examples. I was in the meeting, right? I was in a conversation with a young lady, right?
Okay.
And they talked about how they just finished a meeting and it was running over a little. It was past 4 p.m. And then the manager of the meeting then says, let's assume her name is, let's say Funke, that's not her name, but let's just say Funke,
Okay.
She says, we better hurry up and finish so that Funke can go and cook for her husband. Now, this is in a professional setting. Now, somebody challenged me once and said, isn't that cultural? Wasn't that a joke? Well, this is the thing. It probably was a joke, but these are the things we're talking about. It's unconscious, right? Why single her out?
Yeah.
So we are saying that so her job is okay. I do my job. Let me run and cook for my husband. That is not. In that meeting, she was there in her own right as a member of the team.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessary. So it's those little things, and people are looking at. So because you might think it doesn't really make a difference, but the reality is you never know what mindset people now take away from that meeting. And next thing they say, okay, let's see, are we going to take decision? I don't know. Funke may not be available. Or that sort of thing, and then
start making decisions for her
on her behalf.
Yeah.
And it was not too long ago when these things were happening, where, I've been in a session again, thankfully this was years ago, where there was a discussion about a short-term international assignment, and the conversation was going on around looking at criteria. So you look at performance, you look at, potential, you look at, talent, skills, all of that. And then the discussion on this lady was, she just had a baby, or will she be able to do this? I'm sorry, I'm not your wife. I'm not your girlfriend.
Yeah.
I came, you know what I mean? I came there to what you can't take that decision for
it's up
me.
To me to decide.
So it's really around the unconscious biases that we have. Then there's a second part of the systematic and policy-like changes that we put in the workplace to encourage these women. So you made a point that he made around when they get into. So let me just say this to women, right? Across our focus. I mean, a lot of us, we say this in the workplace on a regular basis. At some point, so let me use myself as an example. I started off my career, was having fun, it's like, I think that in some respect, you will describe me as a late bloomer. And what I mean by that is, I didn't marry at the sort of expected, and I use expected, right? Average age, I married pretty late. Let me just put it that way. I had my first baby at 40.
Wow.
All right? Now, so different strokes for different folks. That's the thing. Now, the thing is, so I went career first and family later. There's some people who do it later. By the way, I didn't necessarily plan it like that, but I was okay with it. And that's the trick. That it comes back to the point I was making before around don't make up our minds for us, right? Yes. And don't make us feel guilty either for choosing a particular path. To go. Now, maybe we talk about that tomorrow as you go through, because I probably have a lot to say.
More examples.
Goodness me,
No, it's vital to give these examples. So it's not like we're just talking about things from thin air.
Flexibility is key. Flexibility is key. The open-mindedness is key, and about learning and understanding why do these things happen. And just say women, they want to get married and have babies. They also want careers.
Yeah? So So let's try and make the environments easier for them to do both.
Possible. Yeah. Right? And then it now becomes your choice to say, I don't want this. So he made another point in that video around, insane people. Like that one I agree with. Because there's certain, unbelievable work hours. These executives do stuff. Well, hello. In today's world, I don't have to get into a plane to fly to Singapore to have a meeting anymore. Exactly. Right? So you're in that institution, what would you want to do to encourage people? It's not just the women, it's also the men folks as well, right? It's around investing in your IT systems that make video conferencing a lot more seamless and a lot more interactive. And you can see the change that happened in the last 1 year since, we had COVID to deal with. There's so many things. So if you invested in IT stock, you're making money right now because that's where it's the future, right? I don't have to get in a plane.
It's the future.
So you can't tell me I'm leaving my 5-year-old baby at home. And by the way, even if I had a 5-year-old, or okay, maybe not 5, it's maybe babies, because those are the ones that are entirely dependent on you. One of the things that I also experienced in my my career so far was the ability to be able to travel with that baby. So I'm based in Lagos, but I have a lot of work to do in other parts of the country. So, travel, and then I check, so where's the accommodation? If it's company, great, I take sometimes I don't even have to take my nanny. Why? Because we have a creche.
Exactly.
Right? So all I have to do is to wake up in the morning, feed the baby. I take the baby to the creche. I go to my meetings. I go check on the baby. You can imagine how much peace of mind I have as a mother, right? That I can keep an eye on that baby that depends on me and still do my job. And I think that's the, that's the advocacy. That's what I mean by the structures, right?
And I'm sure it wasn't like that from the beginning. Sorry to interrupt.
No, certainly not.
Exactly. So certainly that had to be brought in by somebody.
That's the advocacy, right? The people where we succeeded in some of these things now because there are people who fought for it.
Exactly.
There was a time women could not vote. I mean, think about the United States. So, it evolves. It evolves. So, and it'll keep evolving. So I think you might not have all the answers. We might have different views, but I think the conversation should be held. I think that's the thing. Or had rather. Yeah.
Yeah, totally get that. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. So, one thing I wanted to ask was, being someone who prioritized career early on, how were you able to manage, the typical, stereotypical way that people see things in Nigeria, even the world at large? People are like, oh, you should marry at this age, culture, sometimes family, friends, everybody just expects you to marry at a certain age. So how were you able to kind of manage those expectations. You know,
Yeah.
even if obviously you have your own mind and do your own thing, but like it's still very difficult to
Shut out the noise.
you know shut out the noise. So how are we able to like just push past that?
If I remember.
Yeah, and I think part of the reason I'm asking this is because I mean I've seen many of my friends on social media posting, oh, like I actually would want to I prefer, because I saw someone post that the other day, like I actually don't see having children anytime soon, and you know, and I was like, oh, that's actually very cool. People are having this, you know, now they don't feel pressured anymore. But I'm sure at that time things were a lot more, you know, difficult.
So I'll start by saying one thing, right?
Okay.
And to the person who made that post. So I say to young girls now, look, don't get it wrong. People who choose career, sometimes you didn't plan it happened that way and stuff like that. Sometimes you actually plan it that way. I think the most important thing, right, is like you said, because the pressure will come, right? But the first thing is to be very clear in your head what your purpose in life is. So who are you? What are you seeking to achieve? What do you want? I told it my personal mantra is to leave the place better than I found it. And therefore I look for improvement in everything that I do. You know, that's just my own personal motto, right? Now you have to decide, you know, I want to be the best astronaut. I want to be, you know, whatever it is, you define it. And then remember that life comes in phases. So you have to actually have your big goal and then your mini goals.
Yeah.
I say to young girls, right, don't get it mixed up. Marriage is a beautiful thing. Don't get it mixed up at all, right? You know, I'm not an advocate saying, no, career. That's not what I'm saying at all, right?
Yeah.
Marriage is a beautiful thing. Family is actually, that's what we on earth here. The relationships, it's fantastic, right? So if you choose, that's the thing, it's a choice, right? If you choose to go either way, just understand their consequences for any decision that you take. Definitely. And the key is to be okay with it. So perhaps I got lucky because I had two elder sisters, who got married before I did. So maybe that's why there wasn't so much pressure on me. I don't know. Yeah. But then I also had a younger sister, 6 years younger than I am, who got married before me. So, you know, no, it was just, you know, I think in my head, right, I had a view of who I wanted to be. And I didn't think at the time that, you know, marriage defines a woman. Let me put it that way. It is great if it happens, but if it doesn't happen, that's not the end of the world. Ultimately, I mean, depending on your belief system, right? Your own level of spirituality and all that, we're all here. We want to make it to heaven, right? Yeah. So if that's my goal, you don't have to be married to do that. You know what I mean? Yeah. But like I say again, it's a beautiful thing. I'm married with 3 lovely children now, you know, but the thing is, I wasn't going to just settle and say, you know, because everybody's putting pressure on you to marry, or let me just go marry. I was going for what I wanted, and I was enjoying my career, and I was fulfilled as a person. I think that's very important for anything you do in life. Now, it turns out that when I had gotten to like mid-career and you know, sort of, and then boom, I met my husband, and it gelled. So perhaps it was just my nature that if, you know, maybe earlier just wasn't time. And I said, well, everybody's path is different, right? So, of course, there, like I said, there are implications. But the other thing I'll say to people as well, you take a decision, like I said, it has a consequence, right? So if you're not going to marry early, do understand that means you start a family later than the average person, right? Yeah. So you have to think about, again, your goal. If you said by 40 or 45, you want to be doing this, you think about, okay, so where does family fit into that picture, right? Because I remember somebody saying to me, by the time you'll be 70 and then you're still paying school fees, you know, that kind of thing.
People even tell me I should get married early. You'll be paying school fees when I'm like...
You know, I think in your heart, you know when the right time is. And like I say, everybody's path in life is different. So I chose career... like I said, I don't think I planned it. It just happened and I was going with the flow.
And you didn't force anything on yourself.
That's the key. I didn't. I met my husband when the time was right. Yeah. By the way, he's only 1 year older than I am. And all the plans that we had before, you know how you write, you say
write down everything.
That the first thing I marry, if I do marry, I always use that, you know, caveat. A lot of time, if I do marry, was going to be maybe 5 years or 7 years older than I am, or 11 years. Wow. And truth be told, the people I was kind of interested in, where the age gap was really huge. I don't know why. Maybe we love our father so much that we kind of looking for father figures. But the point is, the person I ended up marrying is just 1 year older than I am, right? But we clicked. That's the key thing, right? Yes. And then you have a conversation around, so what do you want out of life? What do you want out of life? So there are other things to take into consideration. There's obviously, I mean, there's no going around this. As you age, So I hate that thing they call biological clock, but it's a reality, right? As you age, do you realize that, chances are that, okay, let me not go into that level of detail because there's technology anyway that does a lot of things nowadays.
Yeah,
It depends
exactly.
on, where, I think the message is just find your path and then follow. But know that anything you do has an implication.
Definitely.
So my first baby came at 40. I have 3 kids now, right? 2 of them happen
Congrats,
to
by
be,
the way.
thank you.
You're welcome.
2 of them happen to be, special needs kids, but that's okay. That's life. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
And I'm enjoying my family so much, and I'm enjoying what I do so much. And that's, for me, that's the sweet spot.
Yes.
You've got to find your own. But then we now say to people, and that's the thing about, the female, agenda, or help it, the gender balance. Let me not call it a female agenda. I'll call it the gender balance thing is really around.
Yeah.
You have to do more. You can't leave things. You have to do more to really encourage and nurture the talent. You're not doing it just for fun. That's, the talent in the workplace, because they are there. So the 2 things I mentioned before around how you, say career, and then I went to family. So I'm not saying it was easy. It wasn't easy, but a couple of things have worked for me. One, obviously, was the crash. Right. So
Definitely.
I could work, I could carry my child, I could travel to wherever I was going to take my child with me and all of that. That was one. 2 was about the kind of maternity leave, things that we have now, because you realize, like I said, it's about outcome, not about effort. Yeah. So when it was time to, and the flexible work policies, there are companies that actually have windows now of when you resume work, as an example, right? So there are people who will say, okay, you have your window of being in the office has to be from around maybe I don't know what they call that thing again. It's something about, they call it something time, right? It's a window of 9 to 12. So rather, let me put it this way. You must be in the office by 9. Up to you if you choose to start at 6:30. So let's assume we're working the 8-hour thing, right? 8-hour window. So you can start work at 6 o'clock. No, not 6. Maybe 6 is early, but 6:30, and you close at 3:30. You start at 7, you close at 4. Start at 7:30, you close at 4:30, like that. 9 till 6. Find your window, because we know people are going to do school run. People are, so many things. Yeah. So that's one about structure and flexible policies, right? Yeah. Then the work from home one is a no-brainer. We're doing it now. We're doing it right now. And by the way, and I'm really curious to see what happens in the future, right? Because all the things we thought were not possible, we find out that it's possible. Yeah. So who is to say
we're
that?
kind of forced into it. And this thing maybe I don't know, it's a disappointment, COVID, but at the same time, it's really revealing some things to us that are actually making us, walk around it and find better solutions to things.
I know people who are having conversations then about, are we really ever going to go back to work? Those debates are going on, and therefore should that be the default? And, so think about it, right? I think, but you have to measure, obviously, productivity, all of those things, and say, okay, what makes sense. But you also have to listen to your employees.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Look at what were the challenges they had, but, how would you bring out the best in them? Because, frankly speaking, so maybe think about the fact that we haven't been for a better part of the time, we haven't been in offices. Think about how much cost you're actually saving from running diesel 24 hours a day, from the, if you have people who serve tea, cleaner. There's pros and cons, because you also talk about employment, what happens to other people. Exactly. But the reality, and we can't bury our heads in the sand, is that the world is changing, it's evolving, and then we have to think, proactively. Yeah. So for me, it's about that gender thing is really, gender balance about the advocacy to help and support people who want to follow a career path to be able to do so and still manage your home. I kid you not, something will give, because you're also a human being, you can't do it. But it's about, I have a choice. How can you help me get there? And not just assume that my mantra in life is I'm going to marry, have children, and I'm not going to worry about careers anymore, So yeah, okay.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So workload wise, I'm sure like things have gotten a lot worse. In terms of, how would I say worse? Things have gotten a lot harder in terms of workload over the years. Probably have a lot more responsibilities, a lot more people managing, that you are managing rather. So how do you manage, extra work, parenting, marriage, and, just life in general? How do you balance it all at this point?
I don't know. Maybe the grace of God. I think everybody has this challenge, both male, female, but let's look at it from the female angle, obviously. Yes. So, 2 days ago, my husband, my first son said he said, Mommy, can I have banana bread? And I was busy because I was working from home. I was doing something. And then I heard my husband say, go ask your mommy. Well, actually, before he came to ask me, I said, did you ask daddy? Because I knew, he was available. I knew he wasn't working.
Yes.
So, and I heard him, was saying, "I'm going to ask your mom and your mother." So, later I said, why? I was working. If I was in the office, would he be asking,
Yeah.
So, but I wanted to make the point, right? I was okay to give him banana bread just to get up and pull it from the fridge, right? But the point he was making already was that mommy would know where it is, right? Not that he couldn't go get it, because that was what I was fighting. I said, are you trying to say that you cannot take banana bread from the fridge to give to your son? It's fun.
Yeah.
But it's, I don't know. It's tough. I kid you not. It's tough. But I go back to what is in your heart. What's your purpose? What are you after? What makes you a holistic person? So I listen to people, career-wise, right? Don't settle. What I mean by that is do what you love, because it brings out the best in you. But I also tell you something else. If the family side is working well, it actually makes you more efficient in the workplace.
Definitely.
Right?
Definitely.
And therefore, part of our advocacy, and that's why, the theme, I believe, for International Women's Day this year is Choose to Challenge, right? Our advocacy is around, you have to make work for parents.
For sure.
Particularly for working parents, right? You can't turn around and say, you have to. And it's some of those things. So I'll tell you what has helped me. One is obviously I talked about the flexibility that we can now apply. I actually started working from home long before this whole, COVID thing created the mayhem that has, done. So I have special needs kids where I was working. Everybody knows about that. They know when I have to attend to them and all that. So we started working around outcomes versus activity, right? So you agree with your manager. This is what I'm supposed to deliver. These are my milestones.
Yeah.
Right? So even if you don't see me, you know what I'm working on.
Yes.
The trick was I available? Could I be reached? Yes. Now, but it's not just the company, it's also you, the individual. You now have to be responsible with that,
accommodation.
Yeah, that's been given to you.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, right now, even as all of us are working from home, if I have to, so particularly on Fridays, so my first son is on the autism spectrum. The second one has full-blown ADHD. Lovely children. I mean, I actually think they're probably
Definitely
one of the happiest children on earth, That's
For
another
real.
thing. But, we're working very hard with them. That's why we talk about the naturopath thing in my profile and all that. We're working very hard and they're really progressing. They're doing well. But the point is this, on Fridays, right? So for them to go to school, they have to have therapists that work with them, right?
Okay.
We've been on this journey for a while now. Okay. But they do it from home now, virtual school. So, but on Fridays, just to manage the exposure, of course, people coming into my house, and also you count your pennies, man, because these things are not cheap, right?
Definitely.
Fridays we say no, leave them to run, because that's when we now do practical things. So they don't need to have therapists with them on a regular basis. But at 9:00 he has class for half an hour. Now sometimes, so things have evolved. He's actually able to sit. In the past, he couldn't. So what does that mean for me sitting at home, right? And he's not in school; he's at home. I would have to leave my work and go sit with him so that he can do his lesson for that day.
Wow.
But I'm responsible enough to know that I've taken 30 minutes away from work, and therefore I will give it back somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the understanding. So it comes with accountability, comes with responsibility. Or is it the other way around? I don't know. But
it works either way.
That's the way. So it's twofold. One is about the support system that enables you be the best that you can be, right? But also you taking account of the fact that, there's trust here. I think that's the key word, right? And that's part of the job of leaders. You've got to learn to build trust. So, is it how you treat people, respect, how you assess them at work. All of these things eventually culminate into those things we talked about, either the microaggressions that you don't even know that you're displaying by certain comments and things that you do, and then the big ones, which is around, structures, how do you do performance appraisals? It's outcome, not effort.
Outcome, not effort.
Right? So she was behind. I could be in my computer. I could log on and leave. Most of you have Skype or Microsoft Teams now, so you can tell when somebody is on and out or busy. I can put it there and do my thing. Yeah. I sit in the office. You don't know what I'm maybe surfing the web. So it's productivity is measured by outcome, not by that sort of thing. So it's some of those things, right? So I said one is about clarity. This is what I want. This is my reality. But you have to have a plan of life.
Yeah.
Work, home, school, children, market, husband, all of that, The key thing for that is well-being, is the well-being. So your own mental health carries a priority in this space. And one of the ways that I do that, right, is I make out time for me. There are days when I say to my husband, we are not talking about autism today. We're not talking about work, I married, he's a pilot by profession. So we find the common interests. I have this fascination for airplanes. I always have. Maybe that's why I ended up marrying one. If I couldn't be one, I need the next best thing by marrying one, So, we will sit together. We will watch air crash investigations together. We will analyze it, stuff like that, Oh, so today, Friday evening is mommy daddy time. Kids bed, so that's it. And so it's like a vicious cycle. I don't think there's any technique to this, to be honest.
Definitely.
For me, it's about
just find a balance.
If I can take care of myself, that's when I'm able to take care of these children. That's why I'm able to actually give my best at work. So it's like a holistic conversation. EXO is about well-being, which involves exercise. You're not going to run away from it. If you run before, it'll catch up with you,
so
right?
you still play squash? Like, how frequently do you do
So
this?
that's the interesting thing. I'd actually stopped playing squash a long time ago, but I started recently.
Cool.
But you know what? I can't. So what I do is like I jog and I run, even though so I'm not necessarily watching my weight per se, but I try to keep fit. I'm not doing just because I need to lose weight. I just try to keep fit.
Yes, keep the blood flowing. Definitely.
Exactly, you have to be alive to take care of it. I still have young kids, sort of thing and all that. And you also want to be productive, so you've got to take yourself to be able to do that. So just recently, I bumped into in the yesterday where I live. A few neighbors. I said, "Are you carrying squash? You play squash?" Oh my God. I said, okay, so can we play?
Wow.
But because I had been working out by, jogging, running, I do brisk walking a lot. Okay. So I got in there and the joy. Oh my Lord.
I actually read something about
brought back memories, the joy. And so it's like, let me tell you what there's no magic wand, but the key one is find what you love. Find what works for you. Find what gives you happiness or fulfillment. I don't know, because happiness means different things to different people, right? Fulfillment, not at the detriment of other people, obviously, It's balance. So you call gender balance. It's life balance. That's the truth. That's the way I see it. So, and then we keep going. All of us are in this together. Challenges will come. Challenges always come. And we keep going day by day, stuff like that. So indeed, not easy, but you make it work. One more thing. Don't try to be perfect. You'll just feel, you'll burn out. It's as simple as that. You'll burn out. Don't try to be perfect. The world was never meant to be perfect, right? So there's something that's called the learner mindset. You learn as you go. Are you curious enough to understand, okay, I could do this differently? So find ways of being efficient. That might involve, I said to my fellow colleagues, that might involve actually learning a skill on how to be more effective. It might mean that you're learning IT skills that help you be more productive. So if you're doing that PowerPoint that takes you 1 hour, you can learn something that enables you, cut it short by 5, 10, 15 minutes. You're more productive. So you really have to, I literally sit down and I write, okay, goal, what do I need?
What do you need?
Okay, this is work, this is house. And then you go at it. Then you review. Come back and say, okay, how am I doing with this? And then you go back and all that. But like I said, you can't do this by yourself. You need all those support structures that I mentioned earlier. Definitely. From the workplace, from home, down to the person, the nanny that you have, who helps you. It has to be the right person who can actually understand, how to make your household function. That's also. So
it's really a plan of life. That's like the bottom line. Because if you have a plan of life, you know who you need to hire as a nanny, who you need to get to take care of the children at different times, how you need to plan yourself, what you need to become more productive, so you can have more time to be able to balance out things at home. So I actually really agree with that. Something that you mentioned before about the accommodation that they made for you. Even before COVID, understanding the your children with special needs. And I just thought about it. There's a lot more to that story because you had to earn that trust.
Absolutely.
It took a while.
Absolutely.
So it's really a two-way street. Both parties, they have to trust you enough.
Absolutely.
And that's exactly why I was really thinking about this whole thing where, women, or at least according to people or our reports, women end up like, would I say calming down, but becoming more lax about work when they are getting to their 30s because of nurturing and having children. Well, some, not all. And at that point, that's literally when they've gained the trust of the people that they are working for. So that's even the point where the accommodation should actually try to make those accommodations to keep those people that they value. So I agree. And it's not just about having the balance from what I've gotten from everything, aside the family balance is a different thing. The balance within the workplace between men and women and also at top positions isn't just about just having balance, but there's usually a positive to having those people.
Absolutely.
And I think the companies and the executives recognizing that is definitely going to make them more curious and more creative around finding ways to solve those problems.
Absolutely. There's even research, I believe, that talks about productivity of companies where they have more women in the workplace. This is about the balance, right?
Yeah.
So, because I'm always careful not to sound as if it's the women are the ones that bring all the ideas. No. It's about nurturing and tapping into the opportunity you have by a different mindset in your place. You know what I mean? So you have that's why you have the diversity. Right. And I mean, like we're talking gender now because there's other ways that you also differ.
Yes,
so even in that one woman or two women that you have, one could be white, one could be black. One went to Harvard, one went to, that's, so many things that still make you different, we're just sort of generalizing right now. It's about tapping into that opportunity. And like I talked about the fact that 80% of consumer goods are actually purchased by women. So you can imagine, so who are, I thought about, I talked about, like I made the mention at the beginning where how representation is so key. Because if you look at where's the pool you're tapping into, there are actually more women. Well, I don't know. I think in the world, maybe there are more men than women, but I think that in terms
the
of
way things are going, 60% of the global
workforce graduates, are female. So where's the pool you're tapping into right now?
Basically women.
If they don't have the line of sight between their early career and that late career. And how are they going to measure that? Is by seeing who you have at the top leadership. Or women don't progress in this company. By the way, there was research that was done around Indeed that way, we don't seem to do badly when you tap into the young workforce. So recruiting, we're pretty good at that. So 50% female here and there and all that. Then, like you said, they keep growing and growing until they get to that sort of mid-career into the senior management thing. And then boom, it just tapers down. Why?
Yeah.
So the research started opening up. Why? Again, childbearing age, which I'll be honest, it kind of shifts your priority a little. There's no doubt about that because, there's so many things to focus on when you kind of start, begin to have, young kids and a family and all that. But it doesn't take away your passion or your focus on the work that you want to do. So I really think that the onus is on employers today to look at what they can do to support. And it's not hand-me-downs. They're not handouts. It's about, look, how do you tap into
the lady's importance?
The talent, there's so many things you can do to do that. So where's your talent pool? Where's your mentorship program? Where's your sponsorship program? Where are you tapping into to make sure that you're nurturing that talent and then you're then removing the barriers? Because that's what they are that actually enable them. Yeah. Do you know that, okay, so depending on the kind of company you work for, right? The people who go on international assignments and stuff like that. And we also found out what happens that if the man gets the job, right? What happens? The woman gives up her career. to be able to go and follow the, because for family's sake and all that. So what started to happen? Female, you could actually compete for a job as well. Or even if you weren't able to compete, perhaps you can find you a job, but on local terms. If you are working outside of the country, for example. So your spouse becomes the senior, or I call it the lead partner, who might be on expatriate terms, depending on what was, offered for the job. And then you are able to go, but you can also continue your career, but you then work on local terms. Because companies are, let's be clear, they're not running charities here, right? Their job is just to ensure that they are being as fair and as inclusive as they can possibly be.
Yes,
but there's also things that can be sustained. You see what I mean? Yeah, that will enable you. So why? Again, it's about nurturing and unleashing the potential. So inclusion is really around where everybody feels, without exception, that they can bring their skill and their talent to work. And fulfill, meaningful career, at the same time be able to add value to the company. Yeah. And if you don't do some of these things, you automatically, sometimes you're not even conscious of the fact that you're doing that, sideline a huge part of your talent. You're missing out. That's the way I'll sum it up. You're missing out. Yeah. So.
I kind of have to drag us back to that conversation because that just came up. The whole value, the trust and the importance of working hard so that you can be able to demand for certain things at certain times. Like we trust this person should definitely have this accommodation made.
Yeah. So the one thing it's important, because sometimes men think like, they've come, with their wahala, or that you're doing things because you want to make up your numbers. So I can tell you now, there's no company, and even your right mind, that will be deliberately pushing a woman up the ladder deliberately just to make up numbers if they're not earning their worth. And if it's not even good for the woman in the long run, you know how to say,
Exactly.
sorry for the language, but that bullshit will get you up there, but it won't keep you up there. You know what I mean? That sort of
That's
thing.
a fact.
It's about you're clear around what you're doing. That the productivity is there. You know, the value add is there, and then you're finding systematic ways of removing the barriers that stop that from nurturing and then from unleashing potential. So we earn it. Yeah, you have to earn it. You've got to earn it. Yeah, that sort of thing. Yeah, but we have to help you earn it. That's the thing. We have to help you earn it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so that's we've covered pretty much
everything.
Just generally though, about Nigeria, do you have any idea on how the current state of things are in inclusion of females in the workplace?
So I think it's evolving. I think that's probably the safest thing to say. I think it's evolving. I think there's a lot more awareness. So if you participate in all of these sort of International Women's Day conferences, the Career Day, there's a range of things that are actually happening now across board. Pretty impressive stuff, right? Where you're seeing a lot of they call it lean-in circles, where employee networks, where you can actually share ideas and learn, and think about the ways in which you can get the support that you're looking for. Things around other women, mentoring other women across industry and things like that. I think it's evolving. I think we still have a long way to go. 2 years ago, in one of the International Women's Day conferences that I attended, I know somebody who came to give a talk there. She is well known in her field, but she's telling you that even at her level, right? And I'm sorry to use this example, but it's a reality, right? We're not going to shy away from having the conversation. I think that's the key thing, right?
Exactly.
About why sometimes you get into a meeting and you find it difficult because your male counterparts cannot look beyond your bust line. Not only is it insulting, you know what I mean? It's embarrassing, but it's like saying there's something, around why can't you see me for what I'm worth and who I am, versus the fact that I'm, female. So there are little things
there's
here and there,
into this conversation.
And I want to, there's something else I want to say, right, about we really should stop using culture as an excuse for some of these things, right? All those microaggressions, the comments people make and all of that. A professional setting is a professional setting, right? You can do your culture at home. You know what I mean? That sort of
Exactly.
thing. And all that say, it's okay. Now there was just joking. No, it's not a joke. This is demeaning for the individual. All they're asking for is, I want the same chance, right, that my male counterpart gets. You wouldn't do that to him. Why would you do that to me? And I've earned my degree. So I have as much right to be here as this person does as well, that sort of thing. So in a nutshell, I think it's evolving. It's evolving. We still have long ways to go, but it's evolving. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually, it's definitely evolving. I know things. I didn't know what IWD was when I was in primary school, and it wasn't because I was in primary school, but it just wasn't being spoken about at that time. But now, it's a thing that people actually look forward to, and not just for looking forward to sake, but it drives the conversation forward. Absolutely. So you're also a leadership coach. I just want to get your thoughts on, based on your experience in that field, what exactly do you think the qualities from the people that you've coached and spoken to? What qualities do you think people need to have to be good leaders?
Okay, I guess there's 1,000,001 of them, but I think there are two things that really stand out for me. Right, it's humility. It's actually what I call the learner mindset. Right, that ability or that belief that everybody can learn. For you to be, if you have that kind of mindset as a leader, then you're actually able to nurture the people that work for you. So I look at humility, I look at that curiosity, openness. I look at leaders who are also learning. That's the way I actually couch a learner mindset. Because if you ever go across I know everything, then you're not going to be open to ideas. You're not going to be open to innovation, because that's what inclusion does, by the way. It's about innovation. There's always continuous improvement in life, and you miss the opportunity if you're a closed kind of person and you're not willing to be open. So I like the two key things for me. It's about humility, believing that you don't know it all, ability to listen to people, and then there's a range of things you can decision making, all of this, but those are the two key things that really stand out for me that probably will make you stand out, sort of thing. Okay.
I don't really think, because I know I did a bit of, because I studied business in school, we did a bit of HRM, and I don't really think we even really focused on humility. Also, our decision, okay, well, a bit of empathy and then transformational leadership,
Yep.
basically like being
Yep.
a servant leader.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's kind of what you're speaking
so,
about.
learner mindset sort of thing. Yeah, you have to think. Your service is not about you have to be because so the reason I didn't go into all those other
This is not HRM class.
but there's a mindset that actually enables you in embed all of those other professional competencies that leaders should have. That's the key for me, because you can have all the professional competencies but still be a lousy leader. That's the truth. In the end, you want to leave the place better than you met it, right? And you want to nurture somebody who can take your place. So you're grooming that sort of thing. So it's all about me. As a matter of fact, if you're a leader, it's not about you. Never about you. It has to be about the people that you're leading into a particular vision.
Yeah. Wow. That was an interesting conversation. I've learned a lot. Even aside the, what we really spoke about, I also learned a lot more about enunciating, because you seem like you've done podcasts for years and I'm the learner here. So, yeah.
Just talk about as an example about, how they say that women, that when you have to, when the men are usually aggressive and a lot more, vocal. So when they talk, that's okay. But when a woman does it,
everybody's like,
you're not being ladylike.
Yeah, calm down.
That sort of thing. I know. Why?
I don't know. But thank you so much for the insights. And I really appreciate the time once again. I know busy schedule, balancing life can be really crazy, but we really appreciate it. And I really hope people at home can get so much out of this, because I did. So that's basically for today. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Cool. Right.
That was quite a session. That was good. That was very good.